friends, Dean here with Escape to Gaming. Today I've got a show that I've wanted to do for weeks now, and that's to talk about the fantastic Grand Theft Auto 5. I can't rave enough about this game. I already did a pretty lengthy impressions video of it kind of early on after just a few hours into it. And there's been so many wonderful videos on it, segments on it, montages, walkthroughs, everything. So it's been kind of done to death, but considering that I think it's the game of the year, I wanted to give mine break it down to basically 9 major reasons why I'm enthralled with GTA5. So I'm going to kind of go through one by one, just kind of talk about the elements. There'll be no spoilers as to the story. So actually most of my friends haven't even finished the single player story. I have actually one friend that's finished it all the way through. Some people started it, got halfway into it, gave up, they quickly got online, and that's kind of the end of it. But I really have loved the single player story on this game, and I wanted to take the time and go through why I think it's a go-to game of 2013 and why it's a wonderful way to wrap up the current gen console generation. I mean, we've had so many fantastic games last year, and then this year alone, they're really hard to top. But anyway, I want to give my 9 reasons why I think GTA 5 is such a wonderful go-to game. So the first thing I love about this game is the story and characters that Rockstar's portrayed. From these middle-aged guys like myself, as far as Michael's character, you got the young up-and-coming person that grows up in our hard part of Los Santos that just wants to get ahead, can't seem to get out of a life of crime, but wants something better, and looking for perhaps a new mentor in his life, which is Franklin. Very well written, very well done. You get Trevor, a complete psychotic out in the desert, and how he kind of ties in with Michael early on. It's fantastic. These are wonderfully written characters. At first, I wasn't sure if I would even like having 3 protagonists to play between. I wasn't sure how it was going to play out, but they did a wonderful job. People complain that there's not enough innovation in video games nowadays, but they really did a great job incorporating 3 characters in one overarching story that makes sense. And the game, along with the characters in the story, it has a really kind of a dark, biting social commentary on the age that we live in. It makes fun of guys my age, the midlife guys going through a midlife crisis. It makes fun of the young, entitled kids today. It makes fun of the hipsters. I mean, you can go right down the line. No one is safe. It attacks the right. It attacks the left. It attacks the old American values that we basically grew up with. For people that are my age or older. And it also attacks the lack of values that we have today in society. The greed, the avarice, just everyone out for themselves. Even the fact that they've kind of taken away the money in this Grand Theft Auto. In the past, every little mission you do, you get a couple $1,000s, you get thousands it seemed. For even Grand Theft Auto 3, the other ones, every little quest you did, you almost like an ATM machine. This time around, almost like real life, sometimes you put a lot of effort into something, and the payout really isn't that great, or it's nothing at all. And I like that about it. There's a lot of interesting parallels that Rockstar did with this game, and it probably goes over the heads of a few people, but I think that it's very finely balanced, and it works very, very well. There were characters that I wanted to see through to the end. I don't want to have any spoilers in this, but you have ultimately different ways that you can wrap up the whole story, and there are huge differences. I mean, it makes a big difference as to how the story finally unfolds and wraps up. So I really was impressed with what they did. I feel that the time that I invested in it, I hated to see it come to an end. I honestly didn't want to finish those last few missions because I knew it was coming to an end. It's true, you can go back, and I'm like right now, I'm finding the collectibles, and there's still little side content and random things that you can do. But overall, the game was one of the most enjoyable campaigns I've been a part of in quite some time. They really did a wonderful job with the characters, with the story, with the sarcasm and the cynical, biting satire that the game has as a social commentary of our age is very, very well done. The second thing that I think is amazing about the game are just the overall missions and heists. The way that they're designed, the way they're set up, the huge set-piece moments, the way all the characters kind of all come together to work together on the heist and missions is fantastic. It's very, very well done. It's a real improvement over the other Grand Theft Auto missions that I've done. I'm very, very impressed. I like the fact that you could, even with the heists themselves, the way you could plan them out, set them up, you can go in loud and destructive, you can use a lot more stealth, you can prepare, you can use professionals, you can use amateurs, and there's basically, it's a cause and effect. There's everything that you plan and pick and do will have an effect later on in the game. So it may just cost you money, it may cost you a life, you may end up dead, having to replay the mission, what have you. So it's very, very well done. Very satisfying missions. I had a really good time with it. I found that probably 75% of them were fairly easy. They weren't overly hard. A few of them you'd have to redo several times, so you kind of figured out what worked. But it's very good. You didn't have to switch between the characters if you didn't want to, but quite often it paid off in spades to take the time and use the different attributes of Michael or Franklin or even Trevor. With their special abilities and what have you. So the main missions were wonderful. I didn't want to see it come to an end. I really loved the heist. I wish there were a few more heists, but overall, extremely satisfying. The third thing that I found very cool about the game was just the random things that you would encounter in the game. Very much like Red Dead Redemption. You could honestly, just be out kind of minding your own business. All of a sudden, someone kind of screams at you, "Hey, that guy just ripped me off." You can chase after them, get their car back, their motorcycle, get their purse, money, whatever was stolen. You might get a reward. You might get more than you bargained for going back. It was pretty interesting, some of the choices you could make. I picked up a few people and helped them out. They wanted rides. And sometimes halfway there, it's like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? And they're just talking your ear off. You find out that they're really nutcases. You're not so sure you want to take them to their destination. And at one point, I actually took them up to this cult leader up in the hills, these hillbilly cannibals, and dropped them off. And actually, I didn't even realize I got a special achievement for doing that, so which was fascinating. So I love the random element in it. The strangers and freaks with highlighted by question marks on the map. You could go and do those missions, which were fascinating. In fact, I kept postponing my main missions just to kind of devour all of those wonderful side quests and missions along the way that they had in the game. It's done very, very well. There's just random things in the environment. Just the other night, long after I finished the game, I just happened to see an area, and I go, where have I seen this? And they had a scene from the movie No Country for Old Men, where they had all of the four-wheel drives in a circle. Everyone's killed everyone else off. There's like one or two people barely alive. A couple of briefcases full of dough. And I said, well, I'll just take the money. I took the money, and a couple of the people apparently were still alive and came after me. Had chase ensued. I did a 180, jumped out of my car, whipped out a gun, and killed them as they were approaching me right through the windshield. It was awesome. So I love the encounters like that. Another time, just the other night, I was actually way out in the middle of nowhere, and I see these cops on this dirt road out by this cliff. I go, what the hell are they doing? They're looking, and all of a sudden I saw this convertible with a couple women in it, and they kind of reenacted the scene from Thelma and Louise, showing the car launching off the cliff, the cops trying to stop them. I thought it was very cool. So there's lots of cool random things that you'll find in this game. Easter eggs, if you will, that are just wonderful. It's just very, very well done. I take my hat off for them for learning everything from all the other Rockstar games and putting them in one brand new game, and it really paid off. The fourth thing that I love about this game is just the cars and the driving alone. Unlike the other Grand Theft Auto games, this time around, you can pick the color of the car if you want to paint it. Grand Theft Auto 4, you go into a paint spray, it may come out silver, red, may not always be the color that you like, but it still was fun. This time around, kind of like Midnight Club LA, you can customize a car, rims and tires and paint jobs and spoilers and air dams and bulletproof tires and armor, turbochargers, upgrades with handling, suspension that are fairly realistic. They didn't make it much better, but each improvement overall tallied up, and it really made it a good value for what the money and the effort you put into it. I felt you ended up with a car that really did handle better, was faster, or you could take on the cops a lot easier with it. So I love that driving. I think it's much more improved. The fact that you can even control your car in midair through some of the epic jumps that you do is really cool as well. It makes accomplishing those stunt jumps a little bit easier. And sometimes a car, you can right it. If it's upside down, you can use your left thumbstick and rock it back and forth till it lands back up on its feet again, or on its wheels. Just wonderful refinements and improvements with the driving. I like the vast variety of cars. You know, being a car guy, I love the fact that they have cars that look like Corvettes or look like Vipers or that look like GT40 Fords. They have your Land Rovers and a lot of your, basic Fords, and the police cars look fairly realistic. Everything kind of relates to things that we know in our subconscious we've seen in real life. So they did a wonderful job, frankly, not having licensed cars. I mean, they come off looking believable, but they don't get in trouble with Ford or Chrysler for having their cars used in, murdering sprees or what have you. So I understand why they did that. I've always loved the cars and Grand Theft Auto, games. It's a huge part of the game. This time around, it's really perfected. The damage or realism of the cars, the way they're riddled with bullet holes, the way you can tint the windows, the way you can put a black and yellow old-fashioned California license plate in some of the older cars if you choose to. Just many wonderful options that they didn't have to do. There's a lot of love and detail put into this for car fanatics like myself. The driving is very satisfying at high speeds. I've had a blast railing across the environments and cities with the cars and doing those stunts. A lot of fun. The fifth thing I think is really cool about this game, and I'm glad they finally returned to it like they had in San Andreas, is the flying. It's nice. I love the helicopters too, like we had in Grand Theft Auto 4, a lot of fun, or in Vice City even. But this time, just having the Lear jets and the F-18s and stealing the military jet, which took me quite a few attempts to, I think it was like the 5 or 6 time that I tried it. I finally actually was able to get one, get away without getting hit with a missile. I actually used Trevor to get the plane, landed it back at his little airport. Now I permanently have an F-18. So it's very cool. The flying lessons were quite challenging, parts of them, but it really did improve your flying ability and stats so that when you did the missions with the flying, it came in handy. So overall, I really loved the flying. I found more complaints about the flying in Grand Theft Auto 5 than probably anything else. And people still even complaining about the driving. But I really do think it's much more realistic, the way they have little turbulence and air currents. I even like the details, the fact that there's no radio stations, that they just have this wonderful Tangerine Dream ambient music in the background, which really kind of goes hand in hand with the flying scenes, is very peaceful. There's times I come home and I'm not up to playing some of the missions or the quest or even like playing my other games. Like right now I'm playing Splinter Cell Conviction, and just I'm too tired to go through and try to figure out what's the best strategy to beat something. So I just go in and I go play Grand Theft Auto 5 and just get in the planes and helicopters, slowly, achieving, the challenge of going under all the bridges and discovering new areas, which, you can really only get to by plane. I'm doing a lot of the collectibles with Franklin and just having his own helicopter so he can land on top of a roof to find all the UFO parts is really, really cool. So I love the flying in the game quite a bit. I think it's a great addition to the game. It's very peaceful, being up in the skies, and very realistic. It's really beautiful to be up way above Los Santos and see it all spread out before you. The sixth thing I think is really gorgeous about this game is what they've done with the water and the ocean surrounding it. The very first night I played it, I quickly got on, I think I started off with a jet ski and then kind of segued into a boat. And I just circumnavigated the whole island, the whole map, just to kind of, so I could see where the very edge of everything was. And I just can't believe how realistic and gorgeous the ocean is. I think it's the best water physics I've ever seen in a video game. They did an outstanding job. It's very satisfying. A good variety of boats and ocean-going crafts. There's wonderful races, which I really enjoy with the boats and jet skis. It's fantastic. It's beautiful. The realism of swimming underwater is just incredible. And then later, when I actually did a couple missions with the sub, and then later bought the docks, and then did all the nuclear waste barrel side missions with Trevor, was wonderful. I went the first night that I actually got the sub, I was mesmerized. I spent, God, I don't know how many hours just going around the whole island and finding all 30 of the nuclear barrels. Some of them, the depths are so deep that it actually compresses parts of the sub, and you actually have to go up and get another sub. And I really like the attention to detail under the water. Sometimes you come across sharks, sometimes you don't. There's hidden briefcases of money and plane wrecks and shipwrecks and other armor and things that you can find down underwater. beautifully done. They put a lot of love, care, and detail into these environments that they didn't have to put into them. It makes it that much more richer of a game. And again, another reason why it's my go-to game of this year. There's so much to do. It's so beautifully crafted. As an artist and a visual person, I really appreciate the additional things that they brought into this game. The seventh thing I think is really wonderful about the game is that all the Grand Theft Auto games have always had these hidden packages and like hidden items. And I love collectibles in any game. I don't care if it's an old Wolfenstein game or what it is. I love scouring and finding collectibles. To me, it makes the game that much more fun, that much more richer. Just last night, I was kind of tired. I was too tired to do, again, more missions. So I just, used Franklin with a helicopter and found like 15 of these hidden UFO parts are everywhere. Sometimes they're easy to find, sometimes they aren't. Sometimes they're on top of buildings, sometimes they're underwater, underground. But it's wonderful to find these collectibles. I found all of the 30 underwater nuclear waste barrels with Trevor, and now I'm using Franklin. There's also some letters that I'm finding as well. And I think if you find all these letter pieces, it adds up to some mystery which you figure out. So I love this. It makes the game rich with exploration. It just makes it really worthwhile to take the time and savor finding ways to get to some of these things. Even though if you know where, I have the strategy guide which shows where all of these locations are, but just getting to some of them is something you have to parachute to them. You got to kind of plan out how to find them. That in and of itself is like a giant mini game, a world within the world of Grand Theft Auto 5. I love what they've done with the collectibles. The stunt jumps alone are kind of like a form of collectibles. They're well hidden. Very challenging. Some are fairly easy to perform. Other ones, God, I've done them like a dozen times trying to land perfectly, because you'll have to land just right on an elevated off-ramp or land on a rooftop on all four wheels or whatever the deal is. Very challenging. So I'm going after the 100% completion, and a lot of these collectibles is a big part of it. I'm going to go take it as far as I can and see if I can reach 100%. It's very challenging. The stunt jumps are probably the most challenging ones I've ever played of any GTA 5 or any GTA game, and in GTA 5 they're very, very fun and highly addictive. The eighth thing I love about Grand Theft Auto 5 is the wonderful array of weapons. I mean, they give you an overboard and a wonderful array of weapons. I've never had so much fun going into an ammunition and loading up. I mean, there's just so many guns to choose from with wonderful upgrades, silencers, extra larger extended clip sizes. If you want to have a platinum finish or a SWAT team finish or a military finish, whatever it is, they have it available. I love the fact that there's so many weapons in the game: sticky bombs, grenades, heavy duty armor that you can get, your parachutes. You can get pretty much anything you want in an ammunition. They have a shooting range, which I haven't even tried yet. I'll have to go in and try that and see if I can improve. I have a couple characters I got to improve their shooting stats a little bit, and I've heard that's a great way to do it. So the shooting's very satisfying. It's improved over any other Grand Theft Auto game. You can shut off the little automatic targeting thing if you want, which would certainly make it more challenging. To get gold in some of them, you got to go for more headshots or what have you. So the game does have challenge in it, even though it's easy and kind of a default setting. You can make it more challenging with the shooting and the aiming. It's kind of the classic Grand Theft Auto, auto targeting setup, but I really like it. It works well. The fact that you can switch between the three characters, as each of them might be in a more advantageous position to take down the cops or the enemy or whatever, is wonderful. It really is done very, very well. How you can switch between the Franklin with a sniper rifle, or down you can switch between Michael creeping around down on a ship or something, is very, very well done. I love the way the game is done. I love the weapons. It's very explosive. The sound of the weapons, the police stars that you get, just getting away, the epic shootouts are over the top. I mean, I actually didn't initiate any police chases or any carnage until I had actually beaten the game. It's the first time I've done that. Usually along the way I'll stop and just spend night after night just screwing around with the cops and trying to see how many stars I get. I actually was so enthralled with the story I played all the way through, but now that I'm done, I actually go out of my way to see how many police stars I can get. I love to infiltrate the military base and have those 4 or 5 stars right off the bat, try to get away as long as I can. It's very, very challenging, very satisfying, and very entertaining. Again, the shooting is a big improvement in Grand Theft Auto 5. finally, the ninth and final thing that I just love overall about the game is just the wonderful world, open world that they created, and it's a large one. They can supposedly fit all the other maps of the, Red Dead Redemption, GTA 4, Vice City, all of the other Grand Theft Auto open world games. You can, in theory, put all in the same size dimensions of this one map, and I honestly believe it. It's honestly that big. It's beautiful the way they captured the parts of Los Angeles, the parts of San Bernardino County, the high desert of California, up in the mountains, kind of like you go up towards Arrowhead or up in the Big Bear area of outside of Los Angeles, way up in the mountains, or Palm Springs where they have the tram going up to the mountaintop. That's all portrayed beautifully in this, between the Blaine County and the Los Santos areas. And it's just a beautiful world to explore. I'm just mesmerized. Sometimes I'll just take a blimp for the night and just float above the areas, and then you can switch the view as the blimp flies by and just admire the beautiful cityscapes at nighttime or the sunrises or sunsets. It's just gorgeous. I'll take a little submarine pop up and just come up to the surface and just stand on top of the sub overlooking the water in the city and see how it shimmers and how wonderful it is. The game is gorgeous. They've really pushed the hardware to the max with the current gen. You can only imagine if this game was on the next gen how much more particle effects they could have. You could have more pedestrians in the background. You could even breathe more life into it than it already has. But they really did an outstanding job overall. Yeah, the frame rate takes a hit. There's a little bit of pop-in issues here and there, but overall, considering there's no load screens going between areas like the old Grand Theft Autos, I think it's done very, very well. I'm very, very happy with this game. It's a wonderful go-to game. There's so much to do. I love the environments. I love the fact they introduce animals like Red Dead Redemption. So sometimes you're out there and you escape from the cops. You think, oh, thank God I lost my police stars. All of a sudden you hear a cougar growl, and then you get killed by a cougar. I couldn't get my MAC-10 out fast enough to shoot him or something. So just lots of cool things in the environment. Hidden underwater areas, really cool Easter eggs everywhere, which I've really enjoyed finding. I love just exploring. Sometimes I'll just fly or drive or take a dirt bike and go all over the place. Every night I find new areas. I find new things of interest. The exploring alone is what makes this game so rich. I haven't got into the online yet. I'm kind of waiting for it to stabilize into where it looks like they've got most of the bugs out of it, and then I'm quite anxious to dive in and try that out. I certainly wouldn't mind having more achievements by going online, but I have had a blast with my 90 hours of gameplay of Grand Theft Auto 5. It really is my game of the year. I think because of the mass quantity of what you can do, and I haven't even played golf or tennis, or done a lot of these darts or other side activities yet. I have had so much fun going after the 100% completion. I'm going to have to do a lot more of those little tasks and fun things to do, and I'm anxious to try all those out. But you really, for $60, I mean, if I had, this would be worth the cost of a console. If there was no other way you could play it but to pay hundreds of dollars, I would honestly pay it. I think it's that good. And I would boldly say that of all the Grand Theft Auto games that as much as I respect and love the impact of Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City in particular, I think this one takes a cake for just mass content, for refinement, for so many things that you can do, and the perfection of how realistic it is. They put a lot of love and care. They almost had too much free time in just rendering the environments and the details in the background and interiors, and trying to get everything authentic and right so that you really feel like you're in a living, breathing city. That's what Grand Theft Auto 5 does. That's what Rockstar pulled off with this game. I really do take my hat off. It's my game of the year. I certainly haven't played all of them yet that came out this year, and it's not saying that these other games aren't fantastic or rich or perhaps have better stories that have more emotional impact on you. But for what you get for this game for $60, it's one hell of a deal. I mean, there's friends of mine that have played it online that say, Dean, just for the online gameplay alone, it's well worth the asking price. So it's like a bonus having the online. I just love the 90 hours. I can see having over 100 hours easily trying to go after the 100% completion in this game. And if I had the time right now, I would replay the game again. I got Batman coming out in a couple days. so many new games, the next gen coming out next month. So it's going to be hard for me to go back and to play this all over again, but I really do miss the story, and I miss the wonderful magic that I had playing the campaign in Grand Theft Auto 5. So I hope you enjoyed this, guys. It's something I've been wanting to do. These are the things that made this game so special to me, and I wanted to share them with you. So thank you very much for watching, and enjoy your games.